all for about 15 minutes of gathering. Here's how I harvest prickly pear. Twist it off with gloves and with a piece of buckskin. You rub off those glochids, those little hair-like spines. And then I do a little rub in the grass. And a final little once over in my gloves. And that's it. No more spines. Many years of harvesting prickly pear, never once got a spine in my mouth or anything. Grass brush was commonly used historically. Buckskin was also, but among southwestern natives, rubbing off was the most common way to process prickly pears. A lot of people nowadays want to burn them off or skin them. Definitely don't want to burn them off in the field because where and when prickly pears are ripe, it's usually pretty arid and prone to fire. And I also don't like to carry them before removing the spines because the spines from two prickly pears will stick into one another and make it even more difficult to remove them. And skinning them is just unnecessary work, and you're more liable to get spines in your hands doing it that way. The skin is perfectly good and safe to eat. Or so they say. I don't recommend eating any wild plant because you could get sick. Prickly pear apparently had a ton of other uses too. The pads were split apart, and in the middle of it were used as a hemostatic by the Comanche and some other tribes. That's to stop bleeding. And also used on infected wounds to prevent or remedy infection. The spines are used to lance boils, also for tattooing, and even for arrowheads for small game like little birds. The mucilaginous sap of the prickly pear stems yields a good varnish for buckskin. It kind of like waterproofs it. It's also used as a paint fixative, being mixed with some mineral pigments and oil, and used as a pigment. The mucilage allowed it to fix to whatever surface it was applied. You can eat the young prickly pear pads. You want to get them when they're nice and soft and pliable, because otherwise they become a bit fibrous. I mean, you can still eat them at this stage when they're mature, and I have many times. They're just more fibrous, not as good. Nopalitos, well-known Mexican cuisine. Historically, among South natives, they were commonly split in half and then dried. After they're dried, you can flail them or just whack them with sticks, essentially, to remove the seeds or dislodge the seeds, which then you can kind of shake out or winnow out. Process of sorting the leaning over in the basket. But these big black seeds are actually perfectly edible. But you don't want to eat a bunch of them whole and raw because you're likely to get a stomach obstruction that way. You want to grind them up before eating or otherwise remove them from the fruits. I mean, some are safe to get, so this is the reason why I normally twist them off. I was kind of careless with that one. And some adjacent spines got stuck into it. Sometimes it's unavoidable. But juice from prickly pear fruits was used by the Seri as a face paint. It's like a pink color. One way I've seen people process prickly pears with modern equipment is to throw the whole prickly pear in a blender, spines and all, actually. Ow, got me. That was from when I was pulling it off. They're lodged in my leather gloves. They're not invulnerable. But yeah, so throw the whole prickly pear into a blender and blend it up and then strain it. I don't really like doing that. Look at these big old boys. Lots of thick boy. Oh yeah. I usually don't like to take more than 10% of the fruits from any given plant just to really leave it to the wildlife. But there's a ton of prickly pears in this area, and it's kind of getting later in the season, so plenty have been put out already. There's plenty to spare. I say 10% per plant. No, I don't say per habitat. Really, in any given habitat, I like to make sure I'm not going over 1%. And realistically, I'm usually only getting 0.01% of the fruits of a particular species in a particular habitat. This Tasajillo pencil cactus, that also produces edible fruits. I think pretty much every cactus fruit is edible. Don't quote me on that, but at least a lot of them are, and a lot of them were commonly eaten historically. Tasajillo fruits are a little bit more painstaking to get to because usually they're attached to a little section of the stem, and it's kind of a dispersal mechanism. So like when a bird or something is going for the fruit, it'll be attached to these little pieces of the stem, and those will drop off and grow into a new plant. But you can do them in a manner similar to what I'm doing here, either with leather gloves or knocking them onto the stick and then rubbing off the glow kids. And they're really good. And they're edible various times of the year. Actually, prickly pear is a really long window of harvest, going all the way from midsummer through winter, and the Tasajillo does as well. You can find it in the middle of the winter. Another name for it is Christmas cactus. I don't know if that's why it's called that, but you can find edible Tasajillo fruits around Christmas. Whoa, look at this crazy prickly pear. It's two grown together. It looks like a heart.